Wonderful. So thank you for staying with us this evening in the tech track. What a brilliant conference so far. So now we are going into the last talk in the tech track. We are going to be joined by our brilliant speaker. Please do reveal yourself. We're about to be discussing the soft skills of hard tech. So how technology and business can work better together. Over to you. Mute, please.
Hi, can everyone hear me now? Good. My name is Fionnuala O'Conor, and I'm here to talk about these tech. I run Opdem, which is a company that uses tech and people to get people and tech working better together. And I think the first thing I'd like to say is that there's a load of guff that's talked about soft skills. There's very little hard data about what they look like, especially in the context of tech. But there is some hard data, and that's what I'd like to share with you today. And the data I'll be sharing comes, some of it from research that's publicly available by industrial psychology academics into what drives great performance in tech work. Some of it is privately available. It's owned by psychometric companies. Some of it I've done myself. Most recently, I led Project Kindy, which is an independent research project into the non-technical ways in which great deep tech and data science get built. And I'll also draw on my own experience as the founder of 3 people tech startups, where I've led teams deploying all kinds of technologies from, well, I don't know, Microsoft Excel, which it seems the government is still using, right through to deep learning. So let me start with some clarity about what I mean by soft skills. And great. Basically, you've got 3 types of soft skill. The soft skills are the behaviors and ways of working that get technical work to have an impact. So, you know, we're talking about things like how you deal with people, how you deal with process, how you deal with problems at work. For each of these 3 buckets of skills, I've chosen 3 highly skilled women to epitomize them. First up with people, you've got Aisha Bowe, who is the CEO of STEMboard, which is a really impressive tech company in Silicon Valley. And she's a master at collaborating, managing, leading others, also influencing, communicating. And those sorts of people skills are what really matter in tech. It's all about dealing effectively with other humans at work. For process, we've got Edwina Justus. She was Union Pacific's first female train engineer. And Edwina was really great at just getting stuff done. Prioritizing, planning, organizing, being very systematic. Process skills, it's all about being efficient. And then there's the inspirational Mary Jackson, who is one of NASA's hidden figures. And Mary was an outstanding innovator, adapting, creating, working with code and numbers to solve real world problems. And that's what problem solving work's all about. It's really making change happen. These are 3 great women, great stories, and also 3 women with great technical skills. And I wonder whether some of you are thinking, you know, soft skills, it all kind of sounds a bit fluffy, not really data driven. Does it really make a difference, or is it basically just about smarts and technical ability? Well, let's look at some hard evidence. Now, this graph is a summary of a meta-analysis, which is research into hundreds of different research studies, and they've all looked at what drives high performance at work. So just to be clear, this is high performance. I'm not talking about the baseline capabilities you need to get and keep a job. Talk about what sets the best apart from the rest. You see at the bottom of the graph, 5 factors, and I'll tell you what those are in a moment. And these are all potential drivers of high performance. And the y-axis, the scale is operational validity. How much do those factors influence results and outcomes? You can see that basically there are 3 types of influence. There's large influence, L, towards the top of the graph, operational validity of 0.5 or above. those are things that are really strong drivers of performance. A median effect, 0.3 or 4, it explains some of the difference between okay and great performers, so it's significant. Small effects, 0.1, 0.2 operational validity, make a little bit of difference, but not a huge amount. If you got down to operational validity of 0, that would mean there is absolutely no relationship between the factor and performance. And if you got right up past the top of the graph to operational validity of 1, then you've just solved life. You have got a perfect driver and predictor of outcomes. Doesn't happen to me, don't know about you. You've got pink and blue columns. The blue columns are simple factor validity, so it's the degree to which the factor drives performance. Taller column means it's got more of an impact. Pink columns are much more practical. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't think of any real life question that I've ever explored which has ended up as just looking at one factor in isolation. It's combinations of factors that contribute to outcomes. That's why our data models don't look at just single factors or factors in isolation. It's the combinations. And so what the pink columns show is how each specific driver of great results works when it's combined with the strongest driver, so combined with factor A. And again, you'll see there's quite a range. You've got factor B, which actually makes quite a big difference, 18% better operational validity, right down to factor E, 2% additional validity. It's not actually much of a difference. So what are those mystery factors A to E? Well, in the alphabetical order, that's not necessarily the order on the graph. They are general mental ability, your basic smarts or IQ, interests, what people like doing, their soft skills, technical skills, and how long they've done a particular sort of work. So I would love to do a poll here, but just, unfortunately I can't. So just sort of think, which factor, A, B, C, D, E, do you think is soft skills? And what about hard technical skills? Okay, now here's the great reveal. Soft skills, it's factor B. It's the second single most significant driver of performance. And it's also the biggest additional factor, which shows it's measuring something that's both coherent and very, very different from that top single strongest driver, factor A. And something else to say about soft skills, they are absolutely developable in the way that some of the factors here, particularly factor A, just isn't. You're stuck with what you've got. So the technical skills are factor E. They don't really matter when it comes to high performance. Now, beyond your basic smarts. Now, that's absolutely not saying you wasted your time doing a computer science degree or paying for coding boot camp. Technical skills are table stakes when it comes to tech work. You've got to have a minimum level just to do the job. But all the research from the meta-analyses that are behind this graph to the work I've done with Project Kindy and elsewhere to, God, a few years ago, Google did Project Oxygen, where they were looking at what makes a great tech worker. Every example I've seen finds that beyond that necessary baseline, greater technical skills just didn't translate to better work results. Other stuff made more of a difference. So what is this big factor A? Well, it's general mental ability, GMA, your basic smarts. Smart people generally get better outcomes at work. And actually the impact gets greater the more cognitively complex your work is. So in the kind of work that most of us in this room do, mental ability is a much higher predictor. It's a much bigger driver of performance than in a work like working retail as a retail shop assistant. Now, just to finish off with the graph, the other two factors are interests and years of experience. Interest adds about 10% to validity, experience about 5%. Not nothing, but I'll come back to what all this might mean in practice in a moment. What I'd like to do now is dig right down into those soft skills. So, people soft skills. The specific people skills that are most strongly linked to high performance in tech roles are communication, teamwork, leadership. I've exemplified them with 3 very impressive women: Michelle Obama for comms, the Black Lives Matter team for teamwork, and a woman called Shelley Archambault, who's a great tech CEO. I think now she's retired, actually, she's probably more of a board member, for leadership. Now, I would love to spend weeks, if not months and years, going into detail about each of these skills and how I've seen them operationalized in tech. Right now, we don't have a lot of time. So let's look at the skill out of those 3. It's the biggest differentiator between the best and the rest for lots of tech roles. And it's also the single most common need or problem that tech business partners identify: communication. Now, at the baseline level, communication it's all about being precise, keep it on topic, actually bother to say something, level of someone like Gordon Brown. But the Michelle Obamas of our tech world do communication really differently. They don't just communicate what they found in the code. They communicate why it matters. What are the business implications, the issues that a data problem could give rise to, what the outputs of a model or a software update might mean to users and to the businesses behind the models. They tell stories with data that have meaning, and they translate technical details into business and human terms and translate back again to their tech teams. And really crucially, they listen. People are sometimes surprised to see this as a differentiating skill, but listening is all about really taking the time to understand the other side, ask for clarification, offer interpretations. It's establishing shared understanding, and that's what makes a dramatic difference in how effective tech work is in achieving business results. So that's an example of people-focused tech work. So I've lost track of my mouse. Problem solving. Again, we've got 3 amazing women. We've got Grace Hopper. She was the discoverer of the bug and debugging. And actually, it was quite literally bugs. Moths had crawled into her computer, laid eggs. The larvae were causing circuits to short. So she was cleaning them out, debugging. But what Grace was a pioneer or was analysis. Then you've Shirley Jackson, who was the first Black and minority ethnic woman to get a doctorate at MIT. She's contributed to over 100 scientific articles. She's been a trailblazer in education and public policy. She's all about innovation. And then there's Rosalind Franklin, who needs no introduction and is just the poster woman for researching. And I'd like to talk about research in more detail because, again, this is an area that is of most concern to non-tech people who are working with technology, and it's also a big differentiator of outstanding tech performance. Researching, there's good enough. We've got a gentleman on the left who is Jonathan Van Tam, who's the UK Deputy Chief Medical Officer. I think he's a flu epidemiologist. And then you've got Rosalind Franklin doing outstanding research. And your average researchers, they're responsible, they check sources, they stick to the problem at hand, they make sure they look at more than one source of data. But outstanding researchers really interrogate data, not just what the data presents, but where's it come from? How's it collected and cleaned? What's been discovered and why? What were the agendas of the compilers of the source material? Deep dive into validity, consistency, accuracy. And outstanding researchers don't just look at multiple sources, they compare sources in smart ways. Just like the research that I presented on the graph a few minutes ago. They look at the interplay between factors, the overall impact on results. And they also look at the environment, the context in which research takes place and how it's going to be used. A friend of mine put it this way. She said, great researchers look to be accountable, not just in terms of giving an accurate count, but of giving an accurate account. They're delivering meaning. Then we move, swiftly on to process skills. And with process skills are all about getting stuff done. So unfortunately, my examples are mostly outside tech because you don't tend to get famous in tech for process. It's much more about people's and problems in high profile stuff. So organizing, I've got Marie Kondo. I picked Lisa Nandy for prioritizing because she's impressed me as Shadow Foreign Secretary for where she focuses in her really huge brief and actually how she does the focusing. And I chose Hillary Clinton for self-management because she stood firm in the face of one of the more blatant attempts I've ever seen to intimidate a powerful woman. And sadly, the process skill that comes up time and time again from technologists and those who work with them is it's self-management. Oops, sorry. Now, with self-management, I contrast Hillary with Joe Biden. He also faced Trump in the presidential debate, and Joe Biden dealt with the pressure okay. You know, you could see that he was adjusting to it. He was mapping the challenges, didn't let it himself be totally derailed. He got through, he coped. But what outstanding self-managers do is they actually thrive under pressure. They use pressurized situations to push through improvements, to cut out red tape. They keep positive, inspiring to others. They talk about challenges, not about threats, but times of opportunity that bring out the best in people. And the sign that we see, particularly when you look at top tech performers compared to other great self-managers, they obsess in a really different way about when things go wrong. A lot of managers obsess in a very personal way, a blame way. Great tech self-managers actually are looking constantly for improvements. They're looking to understand the systematic forces that are happening and how they can change those. Now, I would love, as I said, to go into all these soft skills, to look at differences between different kinds of tech work, but I want to use the last few minutes to give you some practical tips on how you can use soft skills in your work and develop them in your own careers. So if I think about the traditional advice, I don't know what traditional device is. Traditional advice about developing soft skills, it always reminds me of the joke about the tourist who was trying to get to Manhattan's top classical music venue. And the tourist stopped a passerby in Manhattan and said, "How do I get to Carnegie Hall?" And the smart aleck New Yorker answered, "Practice, practice, practice." And, you know, that's pretty irritating as a joke, and it's really irritating as career advice. What should you practice? I mean, how does practice work? Do I have to do the 10,000 hours? What if I do them wrong? Now, what I found in my own work, and also in the hundreds of thousands of people I've helped to learn new soft skills, is that practicing and getting great outcomes from practicing takes care of itself. It takes care of itself if you prepare for practice by doing 3 things. And first of all, you've got to understand what matters in your work. Now, you know, is your work, are the outputs all about getting other people to do things? Your colleagues, customers, business partners. Now, if that's the case, you need to develop high-level people skills. If your work's highly operational, it's all about delivering results, being really tight about the time and costs, focus on refining process skills. And if actually what you're paid for is to fix things, to come up with solutions, to manage risk, stop glitches turning into crises, then major on problem-solving skills. And, you know, in practice, just about every job requires a bit of a mix. But research shows that there are very few skills that make a difference in any job, maximum 5, more often it's 3. And over decades of trying to help people change, I've realized that almost all of us, and definitely me, learn best and fastest if we do one thing at a time. So take a good look at your work, think about what really matters, and identify which single soft skill would make the biggest difference to the outcomes you create. And that's where you should focus your practice. And you'll see on this slide, sorry, I skipped out the focus slide, the know the work. On this slide, actually, the next part is to actually not just sort of know where to practice, but think about yourself and what do you need to do differently. And actually, people work differently. And when I dig into the research data on soft skills, and you know, in my own experience too, as a manager in big companies and small companies, there are lots of different ways to do soft skills. There is not absolutely one path, but there are consistently good ways. And really, those good ways come from getting personal about yourself and how you best learn and work. So when I say personal, again, I'm really not being fluffy. I'm talking about the evidence for deep personality factors that drive us. Things like whether you're extrovert or introvert, these are hardwired and they have a big influence on how we operate in life. Now, just a bit more myth busting. People sometimes talk about personality like there's a good personality, there's a bad personality. Absolutely not the case. What there are good and bad ways to work with the personality you've got. So it's in this slide, I've identified some critical personality choices for people work, process work, and problem work. If you're an introvert, you will probably find that the more receptive people skills and soft skills in general are easier to master. Active listening, as I mentioned, is a key ingredient of communication. Or if you're looking at researching, deep interrogation of sources, reflecting what you can learn from self-management. If you're more naturally extroverted, you'll find that you do people soft skills in particular very, very differently. You'll probably excel in communication, not by so much by active listening, but by telling compelling data stories. If you're researching, you'll probably be really active in interrogating sources. And in terms of self-management, you might not have the greatest self-control, but you will be able to take the opportunity of really challenging situations to up your game and be impressive, not show that the pressure is getting to you. So these practical hints on the slide, if you're looking at people skills, think about how extroverted or introverted you are. Process soft skills. It's more a question of, are you somebody who is adventurous, who leaps in, or are you much more conscientious in your normal work? Problem solving, are you someone who's very systematic, works through detailed steps, or do you tend to get your best results by light bulb thinking, pursuing hunches and testing them really rigorously? Now, before I leave knowing yourself and personality, I would like to say, do not put any faith in the kind of snake oil that Myers-Briggs or Belbin team roles or any of that management crap talks about. There is no evidence behind it, or very weak evidence. Truly, just forget about them. Focus on big 5 personality factors and look at the research in terms of where that leads you, in terms of how you develop your soft skills. Now, I said there are 3 things that make for great practice and great results. And the third thing is, inspiration. And, there are so many inspiring women around, and there are some inspiring men too. And I've referred to some inspiring women throughout this talk. There are many more who are sitting next to you virtually right now. Lots and lots you'll encounter at work, in communities like Ada's List, in all aspects of your life. And really make the most of that sisterhood, because when you look at the evidence for human evolution, the big advantage we have is that we're social learners. We learn far more from each other, far more effectively than any other creature, and that includes silicon-based creatures as well as carbon-based. So reach out to other women and ask them how they learned their trade, ask for advice, watch how they operate, work with them whenever you can. And this is true whatever tech role you do. One of the biggest myths I encountered when I worked with data scientists was that they're reputed to not want to work with other people. That's just absolute bull. As far as the high-performing data scientists go, they did want to work with other people, but like all of us, they wanted to work with them in the ways that naturally suited them and got the best results. And that's actually a subject I would love to share more with. But it's been a pleasure and honor here. And I see Ashanti's come up. So I'd just like to thank everybody. I will share the slides. And if you want to get in touch with me, please do. I would just love to help out to continue the conversation in any way.
Thank you very much. Honestly, it was brilliant. And thank you for highlighting all of those role models in terms of soft skills. I thought that was really interesting. And I can see from the chat.
Choice. There were so many.
Absolutely. And I hadn't thought of some of those individuals, to be honest, and connected it to this topic. And I think everyone in the chat also really enjoyed that aspect of your presentation. So thank you for your time this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we are now going to close this presentation, which will give you an opportunity to go back into the main room, restructure and sustainability. Day 2, I am remembering the names, which is good. So restructure and sustainability is the main room. I'm going to close this presentation down, which will allow you to switch rooms and network with your fellow ADAS community. Okay, thank you for joining us in the Tech Track this evening.